or who we thought they were. That's why we took the damn field. Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
Stafford down the middle is intercepted. DJ Moore.
Overthrows and intercepted for DJ Moore.
Will I see you again?
Cleveland throws and is intercepted by DJ Moore.
Pushing up the hill, searching for the thrill of it.
Here's takes the snap from his own end zone, winds up, throws into traffic, it is deflected, picked up by DJ Moore. Moore to 10, 5, end zone, touchdown, touchdown Bears. DJ Moore, pick 6.
You are tuned in to the Chris and DJ Show with former Chicago Bears nickelback DJ Moore.
Bring it tight, bring it tight, bring it tight. Simple, man. It's about what you got in here. Bring a little heart with you tonight. Bring a little heart. This game's about will. What are you willing to do with the guy next to you? Bring that. Bring that. Blood, sweat, tears. Leave that on the field. Everything you got. Sunday Night Football.
The Chicago Bears hibernate in a den of hopelessness. And obviously they aren't following protocol in Chicago because whatever the offense had very early on in the year, the defense has now caught it. The defense is now testing positive for suck. And when you play against the Green Bay Packers and you allow Aaron Rodgers to do what he did last night offensively, to play a flawless game, to not get hit in the pocket, for Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams to be able to run the football like that, you don't stand a chance. The reason we gave him a chance was we felt like if Mitchell Trubisky could create some things with his legs, if the offense could actually move the ball, we knew that this defense was good enough. Now they have nothing. Now the defense has given up. Now the offense is showing you no matter who the quarterback is, no matter who the play caller is, they won't be able to create points in critical moments. And so if you're the Chicago Bears, you pack this season up and you figure out where this started and when you can end it. And you end it as fast as you can. You find a quarterback, you find a new head coach, and you move forward in 2021.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Chris and DJ Show. I'm Chris Shanafelt. He's former Chicago Bear DJ Moore. And in just a couple of minutes, we'll be joined by former Bears wide receiver Earl Bennett, good friend of DJ Moore. Went to the same school, of course, Vanderbilt University. They're going through their struggles as well as the Chicago Bears. They suffered a loss last night to the Green Bay Packers. And they start the year off 5-1, and now here we are, DJ, 5-6. They went from having a 90% shot at making the playoffs to now a 23% chance at making the playoffs. They're now third in the NFC North, only behind the Green Bay Packers, but of course also the Minnesota Vikings, who are also 5-6, and they, of course, as of now, hold the tiebreaker there. So they are number 2 in the NFC North. DJ, you and I were on last night following the game, and I got to say, man, after hearing Matt Nagy's comments, not only last night, but even this morning, I got to say, I'm probably more heated today than I was yesterday after watching that embarrassing output. We're going to go ahead and play some of what Matt Nagy had to say this morning, DJ, because especially as a former defender of this football team, I'm curious to get your take on what Matt Nagy said to start his press conference this morning. Here's Matt Nagy, courtesy of ChicagoBears.com.
The thing that I start off with is what started on the beginning of the game for them to go on this 14-play drive, 75 yards, and go down and score. That's not who we are as a defense. And so when you look at this thing big picture, they had basically 3 drives and around 36 plays. 22 out of those 36 plays were 5+ yards. That can't happen. And our defensive guys know that. You have to be able to shut them down and not allow 16 first downs in 36 plays, 5 of 6 on third downs, and 3 touchdown drives. That's not who our defense is. And and our guys, they need to understand where we're coming from with that, and how we feed off of them as a defense. They've done a hell of a job all year long, but yesterday was not where we need to be. And I think for all of us.
And so DJ right there, there he is right away. First thing he says in the press conference, and he's putting blame on the defense. You don't hear any mention right there in that first minute and a half about the offensive side of the football. And it's not what he said that pisses me off, DJ, because he's not wrong. He's not wrong. They allowed 41 points to the Green Bay Packers. Obviously, one of those touchdowns coming from a fumble recovery from the Packers defense. They brought it in for a touchdown. But for that to be your opening statement from last night's game this morning, you had a whole day to rewatch the tape and go over everything. If you're a defender on this Bears team, DJ, are you pissed off that that's how the guru of this 31st ranked offense opened up his presser?
No, not really. Well, the offense has been struggling for 2.5 years. Like you come to expect that. Like what we have not come to expect is the defense looking that. I mean, that's a top ranked defense that looked like they was ranked somewhere where the offense was ranked. So I think it's fine. I think as a defender, you take pride in the defense that you play, and you want to really to who much is given, much is required. And that defense has a lot of star power on it. And again, you just need more. The offense may struggle, but the defense, you can't do both, especially with a defense like this. And that was, again, like I was saying last night, I don't think you'll see that again though. Because it just doesn't happen like that. Now again, like you couldn't stop the run. There was a lot going wrong. So whatever it was, when you play again, the other teams are going to try to emulate that. But again, do the lines have Aaron Rodgers or the offensive line that he had, or I guess the play call? They don't. So I think their defense will recover. But again, you're going to call out. I think you always call out the star player, and the defense is the star to me, the star of the team. So you call them out first, and then the chips will fall when they pick it up.
And there's one more clip that I'd like to play here from the Matt Nagy press conference from this morning. So he had some time to think about it. He had some time to overlook and go over the game film and dissect what it was that he's seen from last night's debacle. Again, 41-25. That's not even the story, man. That score, that game was so much more uglier than what the score might indicate. Here's some more of what Matt Nagy had to say, again, courtesy of ChicagoBears.com.
Whatever it is, I know this. We better wake our tails up. Every freaking coach on the staff, every player better wake up and start understanding where we're at. Have some personal pride. Have a freaking sense of urgency. Know where we're at. Have some pride into who we're playing for and why we do this. And then go find a way to win as a team. That's my challenge to every single person in that building this week, is that. And so yesterday was flat out embarrassing. And our guys know it. I'm not telling you something they don't know. They know it. But we're gonna step up, and all coaches, all players, and we got 5 games left. So for us, it's our own personal challenge as to where we're at and how we're going to do this thing. But that performance yesterday is ridiculous and can't happen. And obviously that starts with me.
And obviously that starts with me, Matt Nagy. And here I am giving that type of speech following the bye week, following an ugly loss to your rival, Green Bay Packers, who have had your number for the past 20 years or whatever it's been. It's felt like 20 years, if not longer, DJ, since I've been following the team. I'm 25. So, it's nice. I mean, that sounds good and all, DJ, but that sounds like the same shit that you hear week in and week out following these ugly losses. Matt Nagy, he answers the media's question, which you love. I respect it. But, to hear the same thing over and over again, oh, we know what we have to do. We know what we have to go over, and we know we know what we have to correct. Well, go back and correct it, man, because now your job's on the line. Now we're really getting down to the gritty because especially after a Packers loss, you got Bears fans all over. They're you already know, DJ. I mean, they're calling for some people's jobs here in the Windy City.
Yeah, you can imagine. The national media is doing the same thing because after a bye week, primetime game, you look that bad. You got to start asking. I think the funny thing about that whole thing when he was saying, because I think all coaches would do that. Every coach, all right. Now again, when you say every coach, you're not talking about every coach. You're talking about a specific coach, but you're gonna say every coach, but that coach knows who you're talking to. All right, every player. It's not every player, but again, those players understand who you talking to. I've always been taught, like, you always say me first. It's always my fault first. He did it the reverse. It was your fault, and then at the end he was like, let me sneak it in, and then I got to do better too. Bye. You know what I mean? So it's just like, well, no, like, you start with me because the buck starts and ends with me. Like, well, we can't have that. Well, you didn't seem that passionate about when your offense has always struggled or when you haven't been able to call the right plays. Yeah, we understand you're deficient at offensive line. You knew that. Like, you knew that. Like, these are things you know, but again, like, how do you get into a situation where I get guys open? I figure out new ways and unique ways to make plays and not send Mooney out on a one-man route. The safety don't have nowhere else to go. Like, he's going to pick it off. It makes sense. Like, it's just hard to just sit here and not only watch the game, but then after the game, hear him talk about the team like that's you. Like it's like me. I'm I'll tell you, like, if I'm in the house arguing or something, you know what I mean? And I'm telling my kids to pick something up, like, why do you put that down now? But at the end of the day, it's like, who fault? Actually, oh, you know what? I actually put that down. That was my fault. Right. Coach, this on you, man. Like, that is on you. So don't come out there and put it on everybody else when it is on you. It's on me. And I love when Coach said, you know, that's my fault. That's on me. You keep that inside the locker room. Now, when we come to that's on me. That's on me. We're going to get it together. You go in the locker room, you can do all that. Hey, Coach, Chuck, that was shitty, Chuck. That was media. That's on me, baby. Say, hey, Mitch, you did all right at times, but need a little bit more. Offensive line, damn. We got to get a whole new one, but we got y'all, so let's do this thing. Media, oh no, that's on me. That's on me. So it's gonna be fairly interesting, I think, because if you keep playing this bad, you have to just at some point, like, do you drag it out? Like, do I drag it out? The inevitable. If the relationship over with, it's over with. Go get you a new dude, man. This one, we got to figure something else out. We got to do something else. Come on.
Yeah. Of course, the Bears have never fired a coach or a GM for that matter in season. But again, I mean, the fan base certainly is calling for it. It's always after these ugly losses against the Green Bay Packers, DJ. But let's go ahead and move on to our guest as we are now joined by former Chicago Bears wide receiver, former teammate of yours, DJ. He's Earl Bennett, used to go by, of course, Agent Orange. Earl Bennett joins the show now, and we really appreciate you taking the time out of your evening, Earl. It's always disappointing when the Bears drop a game to the rival team up north. That's something, unfortunately, this fan base has somewhat gotten used to, gotten very familiar with over the years, especially as of recent. But when it comes in the fashion that it did last night, 41-25, I've said it a number of times already, that that game wasn't as close as that scoreboard indicated at the final, once the final fourth quarter hit all zeros. Now it's gotten to a point where people, media, fan base, whatever, they're calling for jobs, whether it's Ryan Pace, Matt Nagy, Ted Phillips, the whole three stooges, as they like to call them. What was your take, Earl, on the ugly showing last night by the beloved Bears?
Yeah, I think when you look at the Chicago Bears team, it's evident that they don't have an identity on the offense. Defensively, you're starting to see guys that are really, they're tired because they are out on the field a lot. The time of possession is evident, and you have an offense that can't move the ball. If I'm Khalil Mack, I'm disgusted. I'm ready to get up out of Chicago because I know I only got a couple prime years left in me to be able to make the impact that I've been doing. So when you look at the entire offense, you look at the issues at the offensive line, look at the issues at quarterback. Most importantly, you're just trying to figure out what does the future hold at the quarterback position for the Chicago Bears. And me personally, I think you try to get a veteran presence there, but is that guy out there? Is there a quarterback that the Chicago Bears can go out and get and bring in and say, hey, this is our guy. We're going to draft the guy, groom him, because if you try to draft one of those guys that isn't Trevor Lawrence, you're going to be back in the same position, and you don't want to be there again. So I think you have to do something. You got to make a splash play here this offseason, try to get somebody in. But most important, that offensive line, they're just atrocious. You got to find somebody that wants to come in and do their job. And is that evident that those guys they can't do it. They can't keep the quarterback upright. They can't really create holes for Montgomery to run. And it's bad. It's bad in Chicago. I will say that this has to be probably the worst offense that I've seen in Chicago Bears probably past 15, 20 years, I would say, just because they aren't able to really push the ball downfield. They don't have an identity. Even with Kyle Orton and Rex Grossman, they were good at play action. You had Cedric Benson and those guys, Thomas Davis, that could run the ball. Now, you don't have anything. You have Allen Robinson, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Well, my thing will be so if you're the GM, you're Ryan Pace, all right? We know we need change. We need line. We need quarterback. What's the first move you making? Well, how do you get there?
Yeah, I think the first move you got to make is you got to be honest with yourself. That's what we're not seeing. We see these guys, they're trying to place the blame on, the team and their lack of execution. But you got to realize that these are your guys now. These aren't guys that, you've taken over from John Fox. These are your guys now. And you've had, over the past 3-4 years to really cement yourself as a top GM in the draft, in the offseason, and you've yet to do it. So I think moving forward, the first thing to do is you have to get offensive linemen. Second, the quarterback. Can you win games with those two guys? You could, but Nick Foles, he's been very injury prone, and Mitch Trubisky can't throw the ball, past 10, 15 yards. So defense is just going to stack the box. They're going to wait for you to run the ball, and they're going to force Mitch to, win games for you. So I think first and foremost, you got to slow up the offensive line. Then you look at the quarterback position. As I mentioned, this year's draft, there's really one guy that you can point to and say he's the guy. After that, it's just, a bunch of guys that could be. You have the kid from Alabama with Jones. You have Kyle Trask from Florida. I don't really like those guys because you look at their offense, they have 10 to 15 guys that are probably going to be top 2 rounds pick. You have Tony, you have Pitts. You have all these type of playmakers. And so I don't really see those two guys being immediate impacts in the NFL to whereas, I really can't call out a veteran quarterback that you can go get and say, hey, slide this guy in and let him, groom these other kids. So it's going to be tough sledding for the Chicago Bears here these next couple of years at the quarterback position. But I do think they have a good running back with David Montgomery. You probably want to add another back that's a little bit more power. Should have kept Jordan Howard, in my opinion, because he was one of those guys that get you those tough 2-3 yards. And at the receiver position, I do like those guys. I think they do a pretty good job. Miller dropped a lot of passes for me, but other than that, I think they're pretty stable, but definitely got to get that offensive line going.
Well, sticking with the wide receiver position, Earl, I'm curious to get some of your more in-depth expertise on these wide receivers, specifically the two, I guess, wild cards. I guess you could kind of call them as of right now, Anthony Miller and rookie fifth-round pick Darnell Mooney. We know Allen Robinson comes out week in and week out. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is. It could be Foles. It could be Trubisky. He's going to produce, although he's had some questionable drops this year. Nonetheless, he usually finds a way to make up for it. He had 2 touchdowns yesterday. But when it comes to Mooney and when it comes to Anthony Miller, Earl, I mean, it seems like one of these guys' arrow is pointing upward. Darnell Mooney, the rookie 5th-round draft pick out of Tulane. And then Anthony Miller, seems like his arrow is kind of pointing downward since leading this team with 8 touchdown receptions as a rookie a couple years ago. He just hasn't been able to produce the past season and a half, at least not as much as expected. He's kind of let some people down there, it seems like. Of course, it's going to be tough when this offense is struggling as a whole. You can't, get a quarterback in the groove. But when it comes to those two guys, I mean, what kind of advice, what's the ceiling you see for these two guys? I mean, I think a lot of people are, Darnell Mooney is one of the very few bright spots on the offensive side of the football this season. Then Anthony Miller, I think a lot of people are still very questionable about.
Yeah, I think when you look at Mooney, he's a deep threat. You can attack the defense vertically. And unfortunately for him, he don't have a guy that can get him the ball. When that is your strong suit, you need somebody to push you the ball. And right now they don't have anybody. Yes, he's fast. He's dynamic. He's explosive. But if you can't get the ball in your hand, none of that really matters. And I think as he continues to progress to work on some of his intermediate routes, I think he will be a really good wide receiver for the Chicago Bears for time to come. Anthony Miller, I mean, he is more of an intermediate guy, really good footwork, get in and out of his breaks very well, really good after the catch. For him, it's consistency. That has been probably his biggest knock his entire career, is that can he put together a stream of games to where he gets more confident with catching the ball, understanding the offense, knowing where to be, and just his overall IQ of defenses, because there are some times where, maybe he can pop in this hole, pop in that one when you're looking at coverages, understanding where the sweet spots are. And so, yeah, expectations were high with him being a 2nd-round pick. And, I mean, just the lack of continuity at the quarterback position kind of, stirs that a little bit. Because when you do have a number 1 receiver like Allen Robinson, what happens with the quarterback? He's going to stare at it. That's his first read every single time. And unless guys, really come in and have a quarterback guru to help groom these guys that they got, as I mentioned, you got to have somebody else to come in and try to spread the wealth. I mean, those guys, they are dynamic. They can make plays after the catch, but none of that matters if you don't have anybody to get them the ball. As I mentioned, Mooney, he's going to be really good in this league, but that really good could go to invisible very fast if you don't have anybody to get him the ball. And I'm talking about really fast. I've seen these happen multiple times with, my time in Chicago, where there are guys that can run very fast, but we didn't have anybody to get them the ball. So definitely got to make sure that you are cognizant of what needs to happen for these young wide receivers to excel and take their game to the next level.
And when I look at it, and even the routes they run, I think are fine, but I think at times it's just the offensive coordinator is not setting up a scheme for them to succeed. It's like, well, if I'm really fast, my routes don't got to really be that crisp. Like, you going to back up and I'm going to devise a scheme. When you watch Kansas City, he comes from Kansas City. Like, what do we want? We want that offense over here. We have people who can run. Yes, we have people who can catch. Yes, you got tight ends who can run and catch. But our plays just look so simple. Everything just looks simple. And I talked about, I think, a couple of weeks ago against the Vikings, I felt like having Peterson in the backfield should have been a good thing. You can split them out. Well, does the linebacker follow him? If he doesn't, you can. If it's man to man, now you can run it. You can go empty. You can do a lot. But it's like, you know what? I'm gonna just leave him back here and handing the ball off. Like, man, you gotta be more creative. And we don't have it. Even with Mooney, it's a one-man route. Like we play action, first down, do a boot. Play action, first down. You get another one. Play action, first down, go deep. Like, come on, man. Like, this is the NFL. And that's offensive play. That's offensive play calling. Like, you have to grow as a coach as well as players. But if the coach doesn't grow, like you said, some of the best players I've ever played against, they just didn't practice players. They were awesome. But for some odd reason, whatever the coach was or wherever they was at wasn't figuring out a way to get them to be the best person they could be. And for me, just watching it, especially on offense, he's not bringing out the best in anybody on offense. Anybody.
Every apple from the tree isn't delicious. And we're starting to see that because, coming from that Andy Reid tree, we expect Matt Nagy to be delicious. We expect him to have those, plays that just blow us away and just sweep us off our feet and just like, where did that come from? We got kind of sucked into his first year. I can recall that Santa Slay play was probably one of the best play that I've ever seen in my career. And from there, it's like Santa just retired and left his sleigh and he's vacationing like in the tropics somewhere. So it's very disheartening to see an offense struggle to this magnitude because you understand what could be, especially with this defense. You don't need a lot, and it's just not happening. And so when he relegated himself and gave the play call to the offensive coordinator, that was a scapegoat. I mean, you see this all the time. He's basically saying, I'm taking the blame off of me and I'm putting it on somebody else. So when the offensive coordinator and they had a bad outing, he was like, it ain't me. You know what I mean? It's like you're essentially telling all 31 other teams in the NFL that, hey, look, it ain't me. It's these guys that I got. And so when you have a coach like that, it just makes it that more difficult to really play for. Like, I would never want Mike Martz to be like, all right, I'm going to hand this play call and dude over to somebody else when that's his job. Like, that is your job. Your job each week is to make sure that everybody get the ball, to make sure that you understand what it's going to take to at least keep us in the game. As you guys mentioned, those points at the Green Bay game, those are garbage points. Like, even Kevin King, the interception that he dropped, I don't know what type of fade, whatever Mitch was throwing, but the ball went right through his hand, and I think they ended up throwing the screen to Montgomery, and he scored.
Yeah, they switched on that one. I seen that. He just fooled him.
Yeah, but as a quarterback, you have to see that. A lot of times when he's throwing the ball, it's like the coaches are already telling him, just throw it, right? Just throw it and see what happened. The one deep ball he threw that had three guys around him, and you hear the commentator say, yeah, they're telling them to take shots now. We want to push the ball down the field, just take chances. My man, you don't take a chance when there's 3-on-1. I mean, you just check it down and you live to see another day, but you can tell they're like, hey, Mitch, just throw it. And he's not going through a lot of reads. He's just throwing the ball up. I mean, it looks bad. For him to be a number 2 number 2 overall player in a draft and to have no IQ on coverages and ball placement, this gonna sting for some time.
Well, he only played they only started for that 1 year.
Yeah, I think he played 16 games.
Yeah, so that to me that goes into now you saw him out there again in shorts. I can throw the ball. You know what I mean? So again, that's up to the GM to say, you know what, will this guy work out? But again, it seemed like when he first got here, when Glennon was starting over him, he seemed like that guy. Like, oh man, he looks good. Like, he essentially forcing him out for you to be the guy, and then it just kind of. He was ticking up just a little bit at a time, and then it went,
Yeah, that's the business aspect of it, DJ. You know, you pay a guy like Roy Williams who came in at 1 year, you give him what $3 million, and you have Johnny Knox who's right on the verge of hitting 1,000 yards, and you're like, all right, Johnny, you're on second team now, and Roy is the starter. I mean, it's kind of like, what happened? Well, what happened is that this guy's making more money than you, and you got to take a back seat. So that's pretty much what happened with Glennon. I don't think they gave him a fair shot. You know, a lot of people talk about, Glennon is, man, he's that. Man, he was okay. Like I would take him over Nick Foles. Like, to be honest, Nick Foles has been injury riddled. I mean, he's bounced around in multiple teams. He's a solid quarterback, but I think he's a quarterback that only can work under Doug Peterson. Like, that's his guy, And when you have your guy and people you work with very well, that's who you want to be with. You don't want to be with nobody else. And as I mentioned, that apple just not delicious when it comes to Matt Nagy. It's not. Like, Doug Peterson, like, they're struggling right now, but I mean, the guy won the Super Bowl, Andy Reid, Super Bowl, and he continues to win. So if you look at probably the next 3 games that the Bears have, I mean, they're in trouble. I mean, they are in serious trouble.
They are, and of course, they're already on a 5-game losing streak. 5-6 on the season after starting the year 5-1, Earl. And again, we're chatting with Earl Bennett. Of course, we got former Bear DJ Moore here as well. I'm Chris Shanafelt. And, Earl, it always seems like, specifically back when you were playing for the Bears, suiting up for the Navy blue and orange, Earl, it seemed like the Bears offense was always average or right around, 15th ranked in the league, almost smack dab average in the league. This season, they're averaging 19 points per game. That's 31st in the NFL, just ahead of the winless New York Jets. And of course, when you're suiting up for the Bears, Earl, I mean, you can bring up Ron Turner, Mike Martz, I mean, it always seemed like somebody, there's always a switch up at offensive play caller. Mark Trestman, of course, there your last year here in 2013. Now we're kind of at like an all-time low, as you said. I mean, you can't remember when a Bears offense didn't produce the way that this Bears offense has been going out there to start this season. And of course, it's all under the guru, Matt Nagy. Of course, he's 2 games in now after handing off the play calling duties to Bill Lazor, offensive coordinator. You touched on it earlier. We gotta get some more guys on the offensive line. We gotta protect the quarterback. We got to get the quarterback. We got to get that position right first and foremost. But when you're looking at Matt Nagy, like I said, I mean, the seat is hot for Matt Nagy, especially after yesterday's loss. Just how deep do these issues on the offensive side of the ball really go when looking at the head coach?
I think it goes very deep. I mean, and it's evident because
apple core deep.
You had Mitch come out last season and he kind of hit on it, no, like, it ain't me. Like he's not letting me be me. Like, he's not letting me do the things that I excel at. They're asking me to do other things, and I'm trying to do it. And you could tell there was some tension between their relationship. So for them to come out during the springtime and say, Mitch is our guy, he's our starting quarterback, but then you bring in Nick Foles, is like, I don't really think they believe in this kid. And it's evident they just brought Nick Foles in. And so you go 2.5 games, and I mean, the kid, they're winning games and he's not really playing that well. And now all of a sudden you make a quarterback switch against the Falcons, who plays man-to-man every single play, which is very intriguing because they don't have the personnel to do it. And, the Bears wide receiver, they just running by guys. So Nick Foles is just like, hey, run to the middle of the field, I'll throw it there. And, they end up winning the game. So when you look at some of the things that are said from the head coach, when you look at some of the things that are said from the players, when you look at the body language, I don't think Matt Nagy has his locker room anymore. I mean, Clubbed Up was fun 2 years ago. Now the club has been shut down, and the inspector has said, like, hey, man, we got to board this thing up, but we need to sell ASAP. And when you just look at some of the, issues that they have during the game, some of the misalignments and the play calling. I mean, it's just like that scatter plot that's just all over the place, man. Like it's just hit or miss, and they're always looking for, obviously those home run plays, but I mean, they're just not there. I mean, you got to lead up those things. You got to have guys that, run the ball effectively. You got to draw those linebackers up, and you're not doing that. So I think when you do look at this team, Matt Nagy, he's in high waters right now, and it's not looking good for him to return next year.
Yeah. And when I'm looking at it, it's just for me coming from Pace's angle, I like Khalil Mack. I think he got to go. Like, if you want to get offensive linemen, there's somebody there. You can find pass rushers. You can just find some guys that'll play hard, because I'd rather lose 42-41 than the game be like 17-13, because they don't want it like that. Like, you have to find a way. We talked about receivers. Allen Robinson, I can't even pay you. It's a waste of time to pay you when I don't have other stuff. You just got to go and catch the ball from somebody else. Like, we got to get the offensive line, and how are we going to do that? Well, either we got to let you go, or you pay Quinn. You got another defense in. You only going to have one get paid. Somebody else got to go. I love the safety. He's really good. But, again, can you find safeties a lot of places? Clint Dix, to me personally, outplayed him last year. Now, he got paid because he earned it from the previous year. But, again, like, you got to start looking at shuffling things around, because if not, you got to go back to ground zero. And like we're like an inch away from like starting it all over again. Because if you don't have a quarterback now, you can't draft one next year. Then what? You know what? Man, I think we need to lose all the games, because I don't know who's the prospect after this Trevor Lawrence. And the next year, it's always somebody who emerges. Like, you got to find that person. And in the game last night, it was evident. We've had Brett Favre and we had Aaron Rodgers, and then we had. Like, that's why you're going to lose if you don't have the guy. And even if you play defense all day, you can stop them all day, and all of a sudden there's a tech. Like, we can't score. Like, we got to figure out something. And to me, if I'm the GM, like, listen, man, I'm sorry, we're gonna have to lose a little bit. The fans will always come to the game. That's what they're gonna do. They're gonna come. They'll boo you, but they'll pay for hot dogs. They'll come. But listen, it's time. To me, it's time to, time to dismantle and try to build it from the ground up or something.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say they're gonna go and get Sam Darnold in the offseason.
It's been a rumor, or not really a rumor, but it's been floated out there.
And it's gonna be a bad decision. It's gonna be a very bad decision. And first off, I have no clue why they signed Jimmy Graham to so much money. That was a waste of money. You could have used that on the offensive line. And then after you sign Jimmy Graham, you use your second round pick on the tight end, and you're struggling at the offensive line position. I mean, there are so many guys that you could have drafted at that slot that would have made way more sense and give you some type of stability on the offensive line. But I mean, you got two tight ends that aren't really producing because you don't have the quarterback or the offensive line to get those guys the ball. And when you look at the defensive side of the ball, yeah, you got some. Those are some heavy hitters over there. I'm talking about in terms of salary cap. Those are some real heavy hitters, and you got to figure out, what I'm going to do in terms of moving forward. Because I mean, Robert Quinn, man, you're making a ton of money. You're making a lot of money. So I mean, Khalil Mack is Khalil Mack. He isn't going anywhere. Then you got to think about Roquan Smith. His time is about to be up. You just paid Danny Trevathan. I mean, Kyle Fuller, Eddie Jack. I mean, you pay all these guys a lot of money. Over half your salary cap is on the defensive side of the ball. So, you got to make some moves. Somebody got to go on the defensive side if you want to make, a splash in free agency and, hopefully get some picks in return too. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we will. So that's something that's been floated out there. We got Tabaria Ruffin asking, why would Sam Darnold be a bad decision? That's a good friend of mine. He's a Jets fan. He knows why Sam Darnold will be a bad decision. He's watched him the last couple of years. I think that coaching
ghosts. That's why. Any quarterback that says like he's seeing ghosts is bad, and that means that he's not seeing the whole field. You don't see the defenders. You don't understand coverage very well. You can't read the hots, and you don't know what's going on. So anytime you got a quarterback like that, you don't want him in no system.
Now, you could be the Tannehill guy, you know, that whole fun, but we don't have the offensive line and the running back for that. Now, me, I would say I'm a Matt Ryan fan. I think he understands offense. Now, Atlanta is, since the Super Bowl, they just been cursed. They'll beat a really good team, and then they'll lose to the Bengals, and then they'll beat – if you put them in the playoffs, I feel like they'll win the Super Bowl, but they just can't get enough wins to get back. So I think he's a guy that's going at some point. I don't know any other veteran quarterbacks that's going to be.
Matthew Stafford could be available.
Yeah, he's been trashed since day one. I don't even know how, and I think it's more so skin color than anything else. I don't know how he's still that quarterback. Because if he was black, he would be at Walmart.
Is there a little bias from the altercation that you all had? I feel like there's still some animosity there that you may want to see him in a ring.
No, I wouldn't do that. You it's a lose-lose situation, man. You just don't. But no, he's played so long and they haven't won, but don't nobody say it's your fault. It's like, well, you're a supposed to be a perennial quarterback. Why can't you get it done? It seems like every other quarterback gets it done. And guys come from college and they get it done. But you're here with this team and they building around you. You have Megatron, you can't get it done. If you can't get it done with Megatron, there's no need for you to try to get it done anywhere else. You know what I mean? So to me, now him and Matt Ryan, I think are comparable. But again, I would lean more towards Matt Ryan because I think that marriage is over with. Again, like you're saying, Stafford is over with. That may be what have you do. Now, he can throw it. He can read defenses. He does have the big arm to go downfield, so it may work. I mean, he has the tools. But you can't have potential until you're 94. It just doesn't – it turns into something else after that.
Earl, I think you might be onto something, man. We might need to call HBO. I mean, we've seen a former pro ball player, Nate Robinson, get in the ring this past weekend. We got to work up the DJ Moore, Matt Stafford HBO event as soon as possible. Earl, last one for me, and then we'll let you go. Really appreciate your time. Last night's loss to the Green Bay Packers, it marked the 7th straight year where the Bears have lost coming out of their bye week. They've only won 3 out of now the last 21 matchups against the Green Bay Packers. And now this week they have to prepare for another division opponent, those Detroit Lions led by Matthew Stafford. Of course, they just cleaned house last week, firing their GM, Bob Quinn, as well as their head coach, Matt Patricia. We played a clip earlier before you joined us, Earl. Matt Nagy said that they got to hold each other accountable. It's kind of been the same song and dance after every loss in the Matt Nagy era. Regular coach talk, you're used to hearing it. Eddie Jackson, he's been a guy that has spoken up recently in the locker room. But is there really anything that can be said to light a spark within this team right now? I mean, they've lost 5 in a row. They're 5-6 now. They have a losing record. Now they're taking on the Detroit Lions, who they very easily could have and maybe they should have lost to them if not a drop pass by the rookie running back DeAndre Swift there late in the game, week 1 to start the season. Is there anything that could be said? Is there anything that can be done from now until Sunday that could light a spark in this Bears team that have lost 5 in a row?
Yeah, this isn't a skid. This is a losing streak. I mean, you guys lost 5 straight games, and you're trying to figure out how do we turn this around. And honestly, I don't see a way to really get back on track in terms of offensive production because you just don't have what it takes to put up those type of points. I mean, as you mentioned, they're 31st in the league in points. You're not going to compete with a lot of people on that level. I mean, yeah, the defense, they're doing well. They can hold teams to to 21, 25 points. But there are some times where teams are just going to light it up, and you have to be able to match their intensity because this is an offense-driven league now. And if you don't have that arsenal, you don't have the offensive line to be able to score and really impact the game like you should, that defense is going to get tired. They're going to get worn out, man. Akeem Hicks, your best player, pull hammy. That comes from being tired. Like the body gets worn out, and you don't have those guys to really make those impact. And so, honestly, yeah, you hear those coaches, they say everybody needs to hold himself accountable. Everybody go look in the mirror. Look in the mirror and tell yourself, we're just not that good this year.
Yeah, and it's frustrating. Well, I remember, and I can compare it. I remember we was in college, and I forgot what the offensive coordinator name was.
Ted Kane.
Yes, and he gave up his play calling to Kaiser. It's like, okay, you know what? On 3rd and 3, we're not going to run. A 3rd and 6, we're not going to run this damn out route. Please, we're not going to do it again. Do it again. Pick 6. Like, when you hand it out, like, it's still the same stuff. It's like, why is Mitch under center running play action when he's not the guy that's going to read the defense? Go no huddle. You go no huddle. Normally at the end of games, he do fine because, or at the end of the half, it's like, man, it look easy. Well, because there's no huddle. They have to stay in the same coverage. You can't do all the disguises. Like, make it easy for them. Look at the Ravens. Lamar, you make it easy. Like, hey, we going to do this. You're going to run. You're going to have like 4 people within 3 yards of you. Juke somebody, figure it out. You have to make your offense conducive for the players that you have. And if you can see that, listen, man, this is a college. Give them a college offense. Don't get tricky. I don't need to be on the center with my receiver back here in I formation, man. Like, spread them out. Go empty and let him be the running back. Run around. If they don't blitz anybody, if they do, throw it to where the blitz coming from. If they don't, man, figure it out. Like, try it. Try new. Don't, like, put a new offensive coordinator. Oh, yeah. I ain't calling plays, but I'm telling you I like this play right here. But then after the game, blame it on that offense look bad. Like, that's your fucking offense, man. That's your stuff.
That reminds me of the high school coach. Yeah, that reminds me of the high school coach. Like, you know what? I just got those 22 guys. They're just not very good.
Oh no, you got to tell the truth sometimes like that. But some got to give, man. You got to just try some. My thing is just try new. Just try something new. If you try something new, I'll be like, you know what? They tried.
Yeah. And, you know, my 6 years in the league, I will say the best offense or the simplest one. And playing with Mark Trussell, that was probably one of the simplest offense that I've ever seen in my life. And, I mean, Mark Trestman, playing with the offense was the simplest in my life, but it was very effective. We were top 10 in offense that year just because we were able to make explosive plays. But when you look at his offensive playbook, there's nothing about it where you would be like, oh, wow, these are some great plays. Oh, this is fantastic. I used to look at him and be like, oh, this is it? Like, this is all we got going? You know, coming from Mike Marsh, when you exploding in motion and doing all this trickery. No, like, all we were doing was switch releasing every single thing. And it was just so simple. We were all go from a bunch formation, so everybody would just switch positions. Like, instead of the outside guy running the go route from his position, he switched with the point guy and run the seam. And it all worked. It's just because it was simple. Everybody just knew what to do. It was, you know, it was very evident, and it allows for the coverage to, you know, show itself fairly easy. But when you got a guy like Matt Nagy that think he's his wizard, things get complicated. It gets tough, especially when you don't have a veteran quarterback that's able to, you know, decipher and break down coverages. It's going to get tough. And, man, as I mentioned, these next 3 games, if they don't get these, we may be on the brink of seeing the first Chicago Bear head coach fired during the season.
It very well could be. I mean, and as you said, I mean, sometimes, what's the saying? Keep it simple, stupid. I mean, sometimes you got to just keep it simple. Sometimes And as we know, Matt Nagy, he likes to get cute in a lot of these things. Like you said, Santa's sleigh, one of the best plays I've ever seen. Haven't seen much else from this offense since. But Earl, really appreciate you taking the time. DJ, anything else for Earl before we let him go?
No, man, just appreciate it. You come back anytime. We on here all the time. Yeah. Random, we call it pop-up. We just pop up.
Oh, yeah. Pop-up show.
Yeah, man, I appreciate y'all having me. Like I said, anytime, man, I'll talk Bears. It's disheartening, they're on a losing streak, and, you got the Lions, you got the Texans coming up. Those two games are going to be important, and Deshaun Watson is killing it. I see Will Fuller, he just tried to cheat the system a little bit, stay healthy, but he's going to miss the next 6 games. And so it's just, you got to do better. And we'll see what they do with the Lions, losing, firing their head coach. But I actually think they're going to be better without him.
It very well could be. Interim head coach is now Darrell Bevel, their offensive coordinator, former offensive coordinator at Seattle, former head coach at the University of Wisconsin, I believe. Earl, really appreciate you taking the time this evening, man. It's been a lot of fun chatting. Good to get your take on some Bears news. It's been a while. I know you used to do your thing with Pro Style Media. Now this Bears team even stopped you from doing that. Can't even have any fun anymore.
Yeah, man. Well, the whole Pro Style, and thank you guys for having me too, but the whole Pro Style Media thing, I will pick it back up. I don't know if DJ shared with you. I'm actually pursuing my PhD right now. I'll be graduating not this year coming up, but 22. So I've just had some deadlines that I had to hit. I've been writing, got a couple books I'm going to release once, I finish up this program, but that's what I've been focused on. But I do think next season I will pick Pro Style, podcast back up, just because I'll be, for a long, I'll be at the last stage of my dissertation and should be good.
Sounds good. Earl, really appreciate it, man. Have a good rest of your evening.
Thanks, you too.
All right, DJ, there he goes. Earl Bennett, former Bears wide receiver, a former teammate of yours with the Chicago Bears. Were you guys teammates at Vanderbilt as well, DJ?
Yeah, for I think it was 2 years. So when I came, the year after, I think he was a sophomore. So yeah, for 2 years, it was cool. And then we got probably much closer when we got to Chicago.
And of course, he's when he left Vanderbilt, left after 3 seasons. He was the all-time leader in receiving categories in the SEC history. So whenever you're able to do that, especially at Vanderbilt, I mean, that tells you something. Went on to have a very good career here with the Chicago Bears. At one point was Jay Cutler's go-to guy on the offensive side of the football. And as I mentioned in the opening, Agent Orange, famous for his orange cleats, of course, got fined a couple of times for wearing them. And the story was that Jay Cutler paid those fines, or at least one of them. But, speaking of Vanderbilt, DJ, they're another team making some changes. I mean, they had the positive, media over the weekend. On Saturday, they had the female kicker make an appearance, and she made a decent squib kick for the team there late in the game. It was a 42-0 loss against Missouri. Following that loss, they ended up firing their head coach, Derek Mason. Have you been keeping up with Vanderbilt football any lately, DJ?
I think, a little bit. Now, when they switched the schedule to all SEC games, did you think they was going to win it? Nah, I didn't. I think a lot of times you want to just be competitive. Like when I was there, we would probably start 4 or 5-0 because we'll play out of conference, and then we'll end up 4-8 or something. And then every other year, you win some games, but it was always competitive. We were normally really good, kind of like we was normally really, really good on defense, really good. And then offense, we kind of struggle a little bit. So that's how it's been since. When I was there, I think since I left, I think the year before then they was good on offense, but then it was a reverse with the defense. But Dan Mason was a defensive coach. And if you're a defensive coach, well, I expect the defense to be good. And Matt Nagy, if you're an offensive coach, I expect your offense to be good. And if you can't be good where you're supposed to be good, bye, I guess. You know what I mean? So again, he's not a bad coach. I can't call anybody a bad coach. I mean, I coach basketball, and sometimes I've been in the little summer leagues, and my girls out there playing, and we losing 43-0. Like, you just on the sideline, like, there's nothing I can do. Like, we can't dribble, and they full court pressing. Chris, we can't get it up the court. They're looking at me like, I don't know, like, you can't dribble, you can't pass. You probably gonna lose 60-70. We'll talk about it. We'll look our wounds and we'll figure it out. You gotta learn how to dribble and pass. But it's just one of those things, especially in the National Football League, man. You gotta be able to keep the locker room. And I think one thing that Lovey was always able to do was you normally played really, really, really hard all the time. The game's out of hand. It never, even if it was out of hand, it didn't look like, oh man, they are still playing hard. Now again, you had guys like Earl and like they wouldn't stand for that. Like he just wouldn't. Just like, hey man, you'll go and you be like, hey, no, we ain't doing this. We're gonna have to figure something out. Or you'll be out there getting beat, playing cover 2. Earl said, nah, he'll change. Like, hey, no, we ain't doing this. Like, we got to do something else. Like you have people that are accountable for the team. And I don't know now, Khalil Mack can be that guy on defense. I don't know how much he talks, but again, somebody has to step up and say, like, in the game, in the moment, like, hey man, like, whoa. Because I've been part of a game where Aaron Rodgers come out, let's go 14-0. Like, oh, nope, can't do that no more. We got to figure something out. And then boom, he seeks to stop scoring. The other night. Like if it seemed like if he wanted to, it's like when you playing, I don't know, the computer on easy and your receiver's real fast, you just going it deep or something. Or the old 2K college football games where if you got a really good team and they're really fast, there's nothing you can do. If the other team playing with Vandy or whatever, it's just like, ooh. So he's probably not a bad coach. But in this particular time, on this particular planet, it just ain't working, right? It just ain't working. You know, you're going to wait for it to work. Typically, probably not. So, I think it's time. Honestly, I think it's time. I just, like, when it happened like that, I think it's just time. You just got to figure something out. You got to go searching, man. You just got to go.
Yeah, and going back looking at the Bears again, they've lost 5 in a row. Now they're getting ready for the Detroit Lions. Must-win game, obviously. I mean, the last 3 weeks we've said it, must-win games.
No. This is one. If you lose to the Lions, who fired their coach and GM,
this could do it.
This should do it. If you want, it's like in the SEC. If you're about to get fired, know you need to lose to Vandy. You gone. That's it. I'm just saying. If you lose to Vandy and you're in the hot seat, your ass is burned. And if you lose to the Detroit Lions, who are the Vanderbilt of the division, look good randomly, have a quarterback randomly that throw interceptions, it's the same. If you lose to the Detroit Lions, ain't nowhere in the hell. There's no way.
Are you making that prediction right now? Do you think so? You're saying that it should happen. Do you think it will happen if the Bears lose to the Detroit Lions on Sunday?
To the Lions, there's no way. There's absolutely no way. The next 2 games, even if Deshaun Watson is playing good with our defense, we should win the next 2 games, and then the momentum can kind of. We should. These should. To me, they should be gimmies.
And of course, they're at home. I mean, not that home field advantage really means anything this year, but whatever it might mean, sleeping in your own bed, being at your own place, whatever. I mean, they'll be playing at Soldier Field. So we'll see. I mean, they got a struggling Detroit Lions team coming to town, but the Bears, of course, are struggling probably more than any other football team, not named the New York Football Jets in the NFL right now. But DJ, that'll do it for tonight's show. We'll probably pick it up later on in the week, kind of preview this Detroit Lions game that we got coming up Sunday. This must-win game. It's been a must-win game now for the past 4 weeks. But like you said, DJ, this is it right here. This is a must-win game. You could, as much as it pains us to say, you could get over a loss to the Green Bay Packers. They're the better team. Again, do you want to lose in that fashion? No, you do not. It was an embarrassing outing, no doubt about it. But now you're playing a Detroit Lions team who you very well should have lost to them week 1. Now let's see who the better football team is between the two teams. Detroit wins this game. It'll be tied in the NFC North between the Chicago Bears and the Detroit Lions. So this determines who will be 3rd and 4th in the NFC North. Of course, if the Minnesota Vikings lose this week and the Bears get the win, they'll jump back into 2nd. But there's no doubt that the Green Bay Packers, they're standing all alone there in that number 1 spot. Quick shout out to Earl Bennett once again for joining the show. Really enjoyed that conversation. Appreciate you setting that one up, DJ. That was a lot of fun. And of course, shout out to you for joining the show each and every show that you do join, DJ. It's a lot of fun. And again, hopefully everybody enjoys listening, whether that's, again, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Periscope. You could, of course, check out the podcast if you missed this show in its entirety on iTunes, Spotify, anywhere you can check out any podcast at. You can just search Chris and DJ Show and go ahead and subscribe, comment, leave a review. And again, I'm at Chris Shanafelt on Twitter. He's at DJ Moore 30. DJ, any final words before we wrap it up?
Yes, you can't lose to a team that don't have a head coach or a GM. You just can't do it. All right. If you lose, don't even go into the locker room. Don't pack your bag. Act like you just learned you got COVID. Just leave. All right. You just can't do it. But good luck though. Man, you can't do that.
You can't do it, but as always, good luck. Good luck to the Bears. They got to win. They have to win. There's that seat. I don't know if it gets much hotter than it is right now. And if they lose this week, it could do it. It could do it for Matt Nagy and company with the Chicago Bears if they fall 5-7 next week. We'll preview the game later on in the week. For DJ Moore, for Earl Bennett, I'm